Okay. First up, we have a presentation from Kristina Larsen.
Hi, I'm Kristina Larsen. I'm the Associate Curator at the David Rumsey Map Center at Stanford University Libraries, and my talk today is called Primary Source Sets with IIIF, Curating Material for Class Visits to the Map Library. So first, our instructional context. Our pedagogical approach at the Map Center is to have students experience original archival materials alongside high-resolution digital surrogates displayed on the large wall screens that you can see in these photos. Faculty will bring their students for a single session during a quarter-long course. The visiting classes will view sets of material curated for them by library staff based on faculty requests and connections to the syllabus. Because these visits are brief, it's impactful for us to provide access to digital materials before and after the sessions. So we primarily use and teach students to use two websites for finding maps, Stanford SearchWorks, the university catalog and discovery tool where you can view material and also make appointments to view physical material in the reading room. We have many maps that did not come from David, which can only be found here. DavidRumsey.com is the other source we use. It's a purpose-built map platform with rich functionality and has a feature called Media Groups, which is a curation tool that allows you to create groups of maps, but it only displays content from DavidRumsey.com. So we have not had a simple way to create unified digital collections. We tried addressing this from a student's use case by providing a bibliography in Canvas, which is somewhat effective but lacks the immediacy of seeing an image. So these digital collections have additional utility for us in supporting faculty collaboration. Our requests come in via a form or email, and then I come up with a preliminary set informed by faculty notes and the syllabus and my knowledge of the collection, and then we send them a spreadsheet that looks like this, which is obviously not ideal. So here's the solution, a web app with a simple interface which allows users to create image galleries from IIIF manifests. So each card has a thumbnail with the title, author, date, collection, and attribution for that item, a set of links at the bottom, link to view item to see the original source, to view the manifest, and to open that manifest in the All Maps editor. We can look at it a little more closely. Here I'm copying a manifest from davidrumsey.com. And then I'm going to move over into the gallery builder and paste the manifest in that top field and click add. You can use the QR code to access this or the link at the bottom. You click on the thumbnail and you can view the image in the open Sea Dragon viewer on the right hand side, and you can resize the pane with that vertical bar in the middle. Here's the same process, but in SearchWorks. So here we're going to scroll down a little bit and look at the pages in the item. There's a cover and there's the map itself. The hamburger menu reveals a side panel at the bottom of which we'll find that manifest. You copy that link and go back to the gallery builder, paste it in the field, add the manifest, and now we have a page picker so we can select the map and leave that cover behind. Once we have the material in the tool, we can organize it with drag and drop. So here I'm putting these maps into chronological order. We can hide and show the viewer pane and also hide and show the inputs. And then there's two options for saving. I'm typing in the name Telegraph and then clicking Save File. This will save a JSON file with the suffix gallery that is compatible with this particular tool. And the IIIF logo, clicking on that saves a file with the suffix manifest, and that creates a IIIF compatible manifest. The whole workflow, we get the faculty request in the upper left corner. I build the set, I save the gallery locally, push that to GitHub, create a link to embed and share it via email. I get faculty feedback. I reorder and edit the set, save a new JSON, copy paste the code into that file on GitHub, and we can do all of this iteration in the same URL. Once finalized, the gallery can be embedded in the Canvas LMS. You can share the link via email. Obviously, we add the link to our internal documents, and we can display it on the wall screens in the library. So this is great for faculty because it's really easy for them to see the selections and review them ahead of time. The Canvas integration is convenient and the material is available for students for follow-up assignments. The students get access before and after, which extends their experience. The View Item link supports researcher behavior by bringing them to the original source location and additional metadata. And the ability to put the SearchWorks link in there supports the reading room appointment pathway. For us, it's fast to build, very fast to update and iterate. It's improved our process and communication. It's very easy for us to display the material during classes, and we're not building web pages. We're doing something that's appropriately ephemeral. So I'm a power user of map platforms, not a developer, and I built this tool using the Stanford AI Playground, mostly settled into using Claude from Anthropic, describing what I want in plain language, and then the AI generates the code. This has taken a bunch of trial and error. The timeline was probably a year plus, looking for something off the shelf that would do what I wanted, and then building a functional prototype within a month, and lots of ongoing refinement. I made the thing that I wanted, and based on the assumption that others would find a use for it, have been expanding compatibility for community benefit. Some notes about the technical design. It's all client-side architecture with no server, backend infrastructure, no accounts. People can just use it immediately, and we don't have to maintain anything complicated. The end user, it's helpful if they know something about GitHub and IIIF, but it's not required, and they can work locally if they don't want to make a cloud-based embedded link. You can just save that file to your desktop and reload it. For embedded manifests, we've done that because when users select different canvases within a multi-page item, the modified URI doesn't exist anywhere. So rather than try to host that, we are embedding the manifests into our gallery file and preserving the selections and custom ordering. So that's why we've got two. The export is compatible and the gallery file is for its own thing. So an invitation to you, help me expand the compatibility, test your manifests, file issues in GitHub, or email me if you don't want to file any issues. Thanks so much for your time and the opportunity to share this work. I would love to hear from you. Reach out if you've got questions, suggestions, or feedback. Thanks so much.
Okay, up next we have a presentation that's kind of made on behalf of our interactive 2D group, and presenting that is Teresa Berger and Summer Sheltenhelm.
Hello, everyone. My name is Summer Sheltenhelm, and I am the Digital Access Services Librarian with the Beinecke Rare Books and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Today, I'm presenting with Teresa Berger, Digital Library Services Librarian and head of the Digital Library Services Unit at the University of Minnesota Libraries, on behalf of the Interactive 2D Community Group. This presentation will highlight what the group is about and what we have been doing over the past few months. Continuing the conversation from the IIIF for Moving Books Birds of a Feather session at the 2025 IIIF Annual Conference, the Interactive 2D Group is interested in strategizing how to use IIIF to provide interactivity to 2D objects with movable parts. Right now, for objects such as flap anatomies or volvelles, many institutions display before and after photographs, or sometimes videos or animations of a staff member demonstrating the interactive features of 2D objects. This slide features a still from a video by Princeton University's Kotzon's Children Library that demonstrates the interactive flaps and the harlequinade titled The Falsehood of External Appearances. While helpful to illustrate the movement of the object, videos don't allow users to enact such movement themselves. The Interactive 2D Group would like to recreate the in-person experientiality of interactive 2D objects using IIIF. Here are a few examples of materials for which 2D interactivity would be useful, divided by type of movement. Objects with hinges include flap anatomies and harlequinades. These objects have flaps that fold over up to 180 degrees. Pictured is a flap anatomy from the University of Minnesota, which has been digitized to display before and after views of one flap. The anatomy features a male figure whose abdomen lifts up to display internal organs. I've added a red horizontal line over the second image to denote where the hinge for this flap exists. Objects with rotational or circular movement include volvelles, which are paper charts generally consisting of stacked or intersecting circles that move up to 360 degrees, both clockwise and counterclockwise. Objects with linear movement include pull tabs, such as Meggendorfer moving toy books. These books have tabs that readers pull down on and causes a corresponding element within the book to also move. We're also including double-sided 2D objects, such as postcards, with the idea that these move 360 degrees on a set hinge. This example, made by interactive 2D group member Patrick Cuba, illustrates the type of interactivity we're thinking of. The example utilizes before and after views of a scrapbook with a flap that opens and closes as a hinge on a single defined line. The demo uses annotations, hinge access, and circular region to animate a circular flap flipping between closed and open states. And I will demonstrate this for you now. So this is the type of movement and the type of capability that we're looking for. Now that we've provided some context, Teresa will describe how this differs from 3D use cases, what we've been doing over the past few months, and how others can get involved in the work.
Thanks so much, Summer. And hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So I know a lot of us, myself included, have been following all of the great work from the 3D group. While we're looking to the 3D group's work for inspiration, I think it's important to note that we're also focused on some very different research questions. As Summer has alluded, interactive 2D is focused on items whose meaning is defined by or best conveyed by the interaction from the user. Think the very specific movement of a volvelle or the turning of a hinge on a flapbook or scrapbook like Summer was just showing. This doesn't always mean views from every angle or multiple points of rotation. In many cases, there is a prescribed way that these items are meant to be interacted with that comes from the object's creator or perhaps a curator's knowledge. We're focused on a way to represent that information in a manifest and a way to present that prescribed interaction to the user, with the understanding that, of course, the interactive prescription is not the only way to understand the item, but is certainly important to its context. This project is also important when thinking about resources, especially when it comes to interactive 2D versus 3D. Many smaller or medium-sized institutions are currently not able to support 3D digitization and may not be able to support it for some time. The equipment, the technical skill or training, and the long-term preservation and investment are still significant barriers for entry. What most places do have, though, is a standard scanner or camera setup. We're hoping that this 2D-focused work provides a model for institutions with resource limitations that will allow IIIF to continue to be widely adopted and more accessible. Next slide, please. So what are we actually working on, besides that really cool demo from Patrick? We've got a few things in the works, actually. First and foremost, we are in the process of finalizing our group charter. We are refining our initial draft and hope to have that submitted to the coordinating committee very soon. We're also gathering examples of objects that have movable parts and that fit our use case, as well as identifying and refining specific use cases. This includes identifying and refining language around movement. So for example, what is a hinge versus a fold versus a flap? What is recto and verso in these contexts? And what sort of degrees of movement are we talking about in these situations? We're also gathering requirements from other communities that we know will have a stake in this project, including capture and photography experts, curator and other subject matter experts, and of course, our users. And finally, we're starting various subgroups. Our vocabulary group is focused on consistently defining movement and making sure we're not just thinking about flappy things. Annotations is looking into how to annotate interaction and document movement in existing manifests. And accessibility is thinking through some of the more technical requirements, including what would be needed from a viewer to make all of this work. In short, we're doing a lot, and we only just started this past September. Next slide. So what can you do to get involved? A few things, actually. First, we'd love if you would add some examples to our spreadsheet. These, it's linked in the slide above there. These can be examples of interactive objects that you already know about online, or objects that you'd like to see be more interactive. The more use cases, the more examples we gather, the better. You can also provide feedback and/or join our Moving Books Slack channel. Note that we are officially called the Interactive 2D group, but our channel is #MovingBooks, part of that whole vocabulary thing that we're working out. And of course, you can join a monthly call. Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 17th, and we'd love to see you there. Finally, I just want to give a huge shout out to our current collaborators. Hopefully we've listed everyone here on the slide, but if not, please let us know in the chat. We're so grateful to have all of you with us, and we look forward to welcoming many more of you in the group. I'm going to go ahead and stop us there and look forward to any questions during Q&A. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks both. Up next, a presentation from Brittny Lapierre, Ben Johnston, and Chris Gilman.
Hi, my name is Ben Johnston. I'm an educational technologist at Princeton University and a member of the IIIF for Education Community Group. In this lightning talk, we'd like to take a few minutes to focus on IIIF from a user's perspective, the perspective of the many types of users who make use of IIIF resources for teaching, learning, research, publication, and scholarship. The ways in which people use IIIF and the ways they make use of the various tools developed within this community are tied to the contexts in which they work. We approach IIIF from three distinct lenses: use, how users move beyond viewing to engage the IIIF materials in meaningful ways; usability, how users navigate and come to understand the use of IIIF resources; and reuse, how users interpret and integrate IIIF resources into the creation of new knowledge and information. From the perspective of educators and students, IIIF provides opportunities to use media in new and exciting ways. While images and other media have been used as part of instruction for a very long time, much of that activity has been limited to the act of viewing. And while deep zooming is a central and valuable hallmark of IIIF, the interoperability of IIIF can extend the possibilities for the use of media in education to a wide variety of activities. In art history courses, for example, in which viewing is certainly essential, the creation of custom teaching collections with resources from many different institutions becomes an activity that both instructors and students can engage in, all within the context of the course management system. With the ability to crop details from larger images, students can present visual arguments in digital essays. In a shared annotation space, students can analyze and tag language use in manuscripts and transcribe and translate collaboratively for language study. Students have fun and engaging interactions with visual materials through puzzles enabled through the IIIF Image API. And finally, students practice these skills through the development of digital projects and narrative essays in platforms such as Scalar, Omeka, Stories, and Exhibit.
Hi, my name's Brittny Lapierre. I'm the Senior UX Developer for the Canadian Research Knowledge Network. Usability in IIIF means that learners, educators, researchers, and the public can find, navigate, understand, and use IIIF content in ways that are intuitive, accessible, and aligned with real educational and research workflows, without requiring specialized technical knowledge. In the educational context, 4 important usability concepts are low or no-code tooling, integrations with popular educational tooling, providing accessibility information, and including authorship metadata. Usable educational interfaces must allow learners and instructors to quickly explore, annotate, and interpret IIIF content without needing prior technical knowledge. IIIF workflows must integrate with familiar educational environments such as documents, presentations, and learning management systems to support sustainable classroom use. Educational content requires structured navigation, alternative representations, and clear accessibility information so that all learners can engage with IIIF materials using the same tools. Metadata should clearly communicate authorship, contribution, and context so that collaborative teaching, student work, and assessment can be understood and evaluated. We've recently established a IIIF accessibility and usability community group. Get involved with us through the links in the slides.
Hi, I'm Chris Gilman from the UCLA Library and co-chair with Ben of the Education Community Group. We've joined efforts with accessibility and usability because of our shared interest in usage. We represent institutional domains, support technologies, and services largely outside the GLAM sector, where IIIF is not well known. What we'll offer here is a vision for IIIF reuse in the educational sphere through vibrant scholarly discourse and rigorous curriculum. First, we'll state our own working definitions. Reuse is the authorship of derivative or secondary content that includes IIIF resources. And reuse engages audiences beyond primary user experience and connects them with original sources via interoperability. For faculty conducting research and publishing scholarship, IIIF goes beyond illustration and serves an evidentiary function. For example, a recent excellent history of the Mason-Dixon line includes an illegible historical map. As a keystone to an edifice of words, this artifact would be better exhibited in a IIIF viewer in Scalar, for example, so readers could see details described in the text. Scholarship depends upon transparency of method and verification of sources. Mediums that circulate IIIF content outside source sites provides detailed facsimile, metadata, and route back to the hosting institution. For students, IIIF materials are engaging and effective at teaching fundamental inquiry skills. The trick is getting them hands-on access to IIIF content in platforms that also manage instruction with assignments, discussions, grades, due dates, and secure, accessible, and authenticated accounts, such as the LMS or VLE. In ideal scenarios, students work with both physical and digital collections. They complete sequence digital assignments and provide evidence of their learning in final projects in one continuum well beyond the original digital collection site, but never more than a click away. The vision is exemplified in Scalar, but that pioneering tool, which predates IIIF, is now old and needs company. We believe this workflow could be made more fluid and traceable as data if JSON records of their derivative content were standardized to enable direct transition from tool to platform without siloing, in the spirit of IIIF's core principle of interoperability. What clouds this vision? As of now, impersistence and instability of IIIF materials, incompatibility of mainstream tools of academia, and siloing of IIIF-compatible authoring tools. Thank you.
Thanks, Brittny, Ben, and Chris. Up next, a presentation from Erin Burnand.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Erin Burnand, and I'm the product owner for the Universal Viewer at the British Library, and I'm the current chair of the Universal Viewer Steering Group. Today I'll be giving a brief overview of UVCON, which is an event we hosted in November last year, and I'll quickly run through the roadmap for 2026 that we've produced as a result of this event. I've presented quite a bit in the past on how emphasis on community-driven development and the investment in a dedicated UV team at the British Library have accelerated activity in the community. With this increased activity, more ambitious ideas around architecture and UI have emerged, but their potential impact is wide and we really do need to consult the community on them. We have a governance model that supports ongoing decision making, but some choices really do need deeper shared discussion than asynchronous channels allow. UVCON was very much in our minds here. Some of you may remember the first UVCON in 2018, which helped shape the governance model that we still use today as a community. We knew we wanted to hold a similar event. We had a successful programme of community sprints to report on, and now we had these big technical questions hanging in the air. It seemed like an ideal opportunity to get everyone together to work through them and push us through to the next phase. So we began planning and we focused UVCON 2025 on the past, present and future. So reflection on progress so far, an opportunity to showcase recent activity and establish that shared direction for the future together. A key priority when planning this event was ease of participation. The UV community is global and people are busy. So unlike the first UVCON, we ran this one online and we structured it as a half-day event to accommodate different time zones. It was also our first time organising such an event in this format, so we were very much learning about what works and what doesn't. We decided to split the session into 4 sections, beginning with a keynote from Ed Silverton, acknowledging how far the UV has come and recognising the role he's played in shaping the project. We then showcased some of the exciting work that's currently happening in the community, including developments from the Swedish National Archive. And then the second half of the event focused on workshops split into technical and non-technical or admin tracks. And then we all came back together for discussion and action setting. So I think it's fair to say the event went really well. On the slide here, we have a word cloud created from participant feedback, which is all really positive. It was well attended. We had 68 participants and the flexible format proved to be really popular, with people appreciating being able to join the parts most relevant to them. One key learning was about pacing. It was quite an intense session, and by the final part of the day, the discussion, people were feeling quite fatigued, I think. So next time we plan to split this across 2 afternoons, one for presentations and updates and one dedicated to the workshops. This allows for more time for the workshops, which were really productive and important, but just too short. And one of the biggest benefits for the steering group, I think, was the motivation and the accountability that the community taking time to attend such an event provides. You know, it was amazing to see so many people interested in the future of the Universal Viewer, and even better to have the opportunity to actively plan this future with them. And it's really lit a fire under us as a steering group to put this planning into action. So with this in mind, once the event was over, the steering group had a debrief and we started the process of putting what we learned at UVCON into a roadmap. So we've initially identified 4 main themes for the coming year, each with a high-level goal. And these focus around technical foundations, modernisation of the UI, community and website, and content capabilities, including IIIF support. So here is our 2026 roadmap, and the technical workshops were really a crucial step in being able to create this. We had a number of high-level questions we took to the workshop, and the decisions established there are reflected in this, and they were modernising or reactifying the UV, issues around NPM, decisions around the UI, and community participation. So I'll just work through those one by one. It was established and agreed that starting from scratch as a React application was not desirable or necessary, and that an iterative approach to rewriting can be applied. We do need a plan for this work, so we've started identifying the components and grading and prioritising them, and we're aiming to have this work completed by the end of February. NPM security was highlighted as a big priority for the community, and the possibility of having a security sprint was mentioned in the workshops. However, it's a challenge to predict how much time and effort is required for this work, so we're undertaking a discovery sprint at the beginning of March to assess before we offer it up as a community project, hopefully in the spring. There was agreement around adopting ShadCM for the UI, and this, along with the decisions already mentioned, will be reflected in updated documentation. Work is already currently underway to modernise the user interface. That includes incorporating the full text display developed by the Swedish National Archive and enabling the viewing of multispectral images. In line with these developments, and in terms of IIIF, we'll be supporting IIIF Choice, Content Search 2 and Presentation 3 web annotations. In terms of community, our improved website will be live mid-February and will include the outcomes of our user workshops reflected in its content and design. We've also formed a content task force which will be responsible for the creation and testing of priority content. Now, we've made progress for improving documentation available to developers. We're still getting feedback that getting started is a challenge, so we're designing a practical deployment session and quick start guides that will be available on phase 2 of our new website. And the end goal here is really a coordinated release of UV5 with all those developments included, and phase 2 of the website with refreshed branding and more useful documentation. And at the end of all this, we have UVCON 2026. Date is yet to be confirmed, but it will be at a similar time as last year to allow the process of reflection and direction setting to begin again. So if you'd like an opportunity to ask any questions about our future plans, please do come along at our community call the first Thursday of the month. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our contributors, community, and all the institutions that facilitate this incredible work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Erin. Up next is a presentation from Ian McCrabb.
Thanks for the opportunity to present. Appreciate your indulgence with my Australian accent. I'm afraid we're all stuck with my A's. Systemik has been around for 30 years as an IT consulting group. And over the last 5 years or so, we've morphed into a digital humanities lab. We develop and support a range of open source DH platforms. We built Glycerine for its research affordances, for its curatorial application in the GLAM sector, and for its educational potential. Our design brief was to build a comprehensive workbench for researchers and curators that requires no IIIF skill. We'll focus today on a new feature we're launching called Annotation Templates. I should point out we built a prototype in 2022 and then developed through 2023 with support from the Australian Research Data Commons. And in the last year, we've radically expanded our design brief from a workbench to a modularised framework for institutional implementation. The Glycerine components are Glycerine Workbench, the workflow interface, Viewer, an open source IIIF viewer, Glycerine Server, the back-end data model and image server, and Glycerine Editor, our app for workflow integration. In addition, we've developed Glycerine CMS plugins, a WordPress plugin, and an Omeka S module for flexible IIIF annotation publishing. I'll introduce the workbench and viewer and then come back and expand on the annotation template feature. So, Glycerine Workbench, I'll start with Glycerine Workbench and do a very brief walkthrough of the foundational workflows. What you see on screen is that I have the image Gandhara collection selected, and I could go into any of the 4 image sets and start working on the annotations. Of course, I can add a new collection. I can add a new image set to that collection with options to upload or link to images and to import from a manifest. I can then go in and start creating my annotations for that image with the annotation tools. I can tag an annotation with terms from scholarly vocabularies. I can share the collection with a collaborator, and I can publish the annotated image. Our open source viewer supports the IIIF presentation API and manifests built with Glycerine or other compliant tools. It's been developed with a modern Vue 3 framework, has an elegant interface, and provides a comprehensive annotation feature set. Our focus is to build out annotation use cases for galleries, libraries, and museums. It's been opened up on GitHub for community collaboration. So in Glycerine Viewer, one can, of course, click intuitively around the image for annotations of each of the components, and then drill down for captions and descriptions to elite scholarship. One can click on tags that have been applied, in this case from a specialist Gandharan art vocabulary. One can show notes. In this case, these are footnotes from previous scholarship. One can use a range of filters to display in multiple languages. I can show mine or my collaborators' annotations. I can filter levels or layers of annotations to implement a containment hierarchy. And one can toggle between a default view and a table view where the annotations are accessible as data. So in this journal article, The image and the selected annotations are embedded and can be searched and queried. What I'll do now is walk through our annotation template feature. So, image annotation is a powerful method for cultural institutions to document, interpret, and activate their collections. However, contemporary curatorial and research use cases require a sophisticated and flexible framework for implementing layers of annotations configured for diverse objectives and audiences, not just pop-up notes. So, annotation sets in Glycerine provide the capability to manage layers of annotations for different audiences. And our newest feature, annotation templates, provides the capability to define configurable sets of fields, text, dates, controlled vocabularies, rich text and media, and apply them to particular annotation sets or indeed to individual annotations. So, permutations of annotation sets and templates support the implementation and publishing of any number of distinct presentations from the same manifest. One can define distinct annotation schemas, for instance, one for iconographic description, another for transcribing and translating inscriptions, and yet another for material characteristics or aesthetics. I'll briefly walk through how our templates are created in Glycerine Workbench and their rendering in Glycerine Viewer. But I should point out that we've developed our templates to be Web Application Protocol compliant and in a way that other IIIF compliant viewers can display. As you can see, we have a range of built-in default templates that provide for detailed scholarly annotation through to very simple notes. One can then create one's own custom templates specialised for different collections and audiences. One can create groups that correspond to tabs on the annotation UI. One can add any permutation of fields of different types to those groups. In this simplified flowchart, one can see how custom templates have been applied to different annotation sets to create a range of different research and gallery experiences for this single image. Built-in templates have been used to generate multiple scholarly views. A gallery template has been configured to generate general and specialist exhibitions. And specialist templates have been configured for detailed textual analysis of the words and syllables in the inscription at the base of the piece. On our website, under Implementation, you'll find an Annotation Templates page where you can view all these permutations. The scholarly presentations with footnotes and semantic tags, the gallery presentations that autoplay and provide rich multimedia, and specialised textual presentation that supports philological research. If you've not already found it, Glycerine is at glycerine.io. On the home page is the Buddha Triad I demonstrated, as well as access to register and use the platform. There are links to both user and developer documentation. Thanks for your indulgence. Really hope that many of you will have a look and give us any feedback that you can. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ian. Up next, we have a presentation from Dee Harris.
Hello, I'm thrilled to join you today speaking about open heritage and IIIF, aligning technical standards with shared values. My name is Dee Harris. I'm the Director of Open Culture Storytelling with Creative Commons. IIIF has transformed how cultural heritage is discovered. It makes collections interoperable, searchable, and beautifully accessible across institutions and borders. But discoverability does not always mean usability, and that gap between seeing heritage digitally and being able to use it is where many users often get stuck. And the reason is simple. Technical standards depend on accurate metadata, especially rights information. And right now, there is no international policy framework giving institutions clear guidance on how digital heritage should be marked and shared. So when institutions are unsure, Many default to one option, all rights reserved, even when a work itself is centuries years old and clearly marked in the public domain. You can see it, but you can't reuse it because its public domain status is unclear. IIIF already provides the technical foundation for open, interoperable access. What's been missing is shared policy guidance to support its use at scale. Let me give a concrete example. Say a researcher discovers a 17th century manuscript that has a IIIF manifest. The images load beautifully, the metadata is clean. The work is obviously in the public domain, but the rights statement reads all rights reserved. So the researcher hesitates. Can it be downloaded? Can it be quoted? Can it be used in teaching or publication? Nothing is technically wrong, but reuse is effectively blocked due to legal uncertainty. And this isn't rare. 99% of cultural heritage institutions worldwide don't have clear open access policies. That means only 1% actually share their collections openly, free for anyone to reuse for any purpose. Why? There is indeed a huge policy disconnect between the acknowledged need to protect access to heritage and what existing international law says. There is no international framework providing clear, comprehensive guidance on how to develop open heritage policies, implement open heritage practices, or apply open heritage tools. So many institutions are left unsure. And without global policy alignment, the full potential of open heritage remains largely unrealized. And that gap is what the Open Heritage Statement is designed to close. Developed by the Open Heritage Coalition, representing 70 organizations across 25 countries, the Open Heritage Statement is grounded in UNESCO's recognition of heritage as a shared resource promoting global public good. The Open Heritage Statement identifies 17 undue and unfair barriers to equitable access and pairs each with a practical guidance for policymakers and institutions. These barriers fall into several broad categories: legal, contractual, technological, structural, and ethical. And for those working with at IIIF, this guidance is most consequential where policy decisions shape digital workflows, particularly around rights labeling and the downstream usability of metadata. In practice, this means clearer classification of public domain works, machine-readable rights information embedded directly into IIIF manifests, metadata designed to travel reliably across systems and enable reuse, and the institutional capacity to apply these practices confidently and responsibly. Let's look at before and after. Before, a museum digitizes a 17th century manuscript, creates a IIIF manifest, and labels it all rights reserved. The infrastructure works, but the reuse is still blocked for this public domain piece of work. With a global setting standard instrument in place, this could look very different. The institution correctly classifies the reproduction as public domain. It applies a machine-readable public domain mark in the IIIF manifest. It aligns its metadata with open standards. The technical infrastructure stays the same, but what changes is the policy environment. Sharing policy guidance enables lawful, confident sharing of digital heritage across borders, allowing institutions to move beyond cautious defaults and enabling technical systems to reflect legal reality rather than uncertainty. But this only moves forward if the people closest to the work, institutions, technologists, policymakers, and practitioners, help carry it forward. If this resonates with you, there are a few concrete ways to engage. First, read the statement at openheritagestatement.org. If it aligns with your values and practice, consider endorsing it as an institution, organization, or government. Endorsement isn't just symbolic, it signals to policymakers that the field is aligned and ready for clear guidance. Second, Apply its principles locally by asking practical questions. Are rights statements accurate and consistent with the work? Are public domain works clearly labeled in ways systems and users can understand them? Could these principles guide how your next digitization or access project is designed? This isn't theoretical, it's infrastructure for the future. And finally, share it. Talk about it with colleagues, technical partners, and decision makers. The more this framework circulates, the easier it becomes to replace uncertainty with confidence. This isn't a theory or wish list. It's a shared infrastructure for the future of digital heritage where technical standards, legal clarity, and public access move in step. The work many of you are already doing. You're building interoperable systems. You're improving metadata. You're expanding access. And all of this has laid the foundation for this point in time. The Open Heritage Statement connects the work across institutions, it connects the work across borders, and it connects policy environments so they can operate at scale. Thank you for the work that you're doing, for the systems you steward, and for the choices you make every day that shape how heritage is seen, shared, and used. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this conversation with you, and I look forward to continuing the work together.
Thanks, Dee. Okay, and last but not least, we have a presentation from Jessie McCarty.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessie McCarty, a cataloger and digital asset manager in Chicago. I will be presenting today a theory-based approach to metadata practices. I'm sure we'll be blessed with platform-specific tools over the next few days, so I think this will be a fun break with the type of presentations we'll have over this open meeting. So welcome all to Folk Data, a lightning round presentation as part of the Open 2026 meeting. Thank you to the Image Interoperability Framework for having me. Please note that this presentation is based off an essay of the same name, titled Yes, Folk Data, 2 Essays on Describing Data and Memory for Human-Centered Systems. So this talk today, we'll be exploring the idea of metadata as a folkloric practice, thinking of metadata here as an act of cultural weaving that also has the ability and possibility to connect data with people and memory. Using IIIF and human-centered description techniques, I hope viewers can leave this talk with new ways to categorize and label their assets that goes just beyond efficiency or even retrieval purposes. When I reference folk data, I am specifically thinking of terminologies and classification hierarchies that make our digital material accessible on online platforms. So yes, open source. And that's largely what I'll be implying to today in this presentation. I'm also going to be partially referencing the American Folklife Center metadata standards in this presentation, which you can see here in this graph as shared from the Sustainable Heritage Network. So to start, I believe open source metadata is key to making digital media accessible on both a community and folkloric scale. Open source standards like the ones in IIIF give researchers and readers the accessibility and fair use across collections. I do think open source tools like GitHub will set a high bar for participating in standard development, but at the same time provides clarity for other communities outside of research that are also well-versed in those tools. I do think the gap, though, lies in those who are not familiar with open source tools when working, editing, or tagging data. In that case, I really think folk metadata opens the floor of what makes metadata tagging possible. Using a term synonymous, folksonomies, I do think this tool considers broader community context for the collection at hand. Folk metadata, though, should not define a hierarchy of an archive, but rather enhances its access. I would consider folk metadata, folk taxonomies as a descriptive tool taking into consideration DAX and NPLP standards in a public or open source collection. Risk imposed, though, in folk metadata does not mean that folksonomies or folk metadata is a superior method of labeling or tagging. It's important that folk metadata and folksonomy should, again, not define the hierarchy of the archive, but enhances the access of it as a whole. There are risks when this is not taking into consideration the current standards that are at play. So risk involved, if not focused on standardization, could imply inconsistencies in tagging, ambiguity across terms, or possible biases in the assumptions of ethno-classification groups of presumed user, and if not careful, could create more inconsistencies across the library. One tool I found that has been helpful in determining accessible and ethical folksonomy keywords has been the Indigenous Metadata resource that was created by Matthew Hagan. Here is a glimpse of that resource. One use case of folk metadata at work outside of the American Folklife Center is the Cartlini Teach na Erin, the Irish Queer Archive that is housed in the National Library of Ireland. This quote-unquote living collection uses identity and community zine materials to imply its metadata, and that is directly reflecting the ongoing activist work in communities in Ireland currently. And I believe that is also open source. In summary, I really believe folk metadata can look like various things. It can broaden and make tagging tools more accessible across platforms and offer community thinking to our digital assets, especially when retrieving or sharing them across libraries. So where is folk data happening in IIIF systems? I really think there are a lot of opportunities for this approach with IIIF tools, but I also want to reference the Mirador image retrieval tool. This tool allows users to image search and retrieve images across partner repositories, compare data, but it also allows users to configure their custom icons and custom annotations across contributors. Ultimately, I believe the future of metadata and open source is folkloric and community-centered. And IIIF and open source datasets really allow that possibility of folksonomies and folk data to flourish. And I believe that is my time. So thank you all so much for having me. I am Jessie McCarty, and this has been a talk on advocating for folkloric metadata practices in our open source tools. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. So that is it for our lightning talks for this session. I'd like to open up the floor for Q&A here. As in our earlier sessions, I would ask that you either use the hand raising feature in Zoom if you'd like to speak up, and if you don't feel like talking, it's totally fine to type your questions into the chat and I will ask them on your behalf.
Hi. Thanks everyone for great talks. A quick question, hopefully quick for the moving books people. Full disclosure, I'm one of the 3D co-chairs. I think we might have more in common to try to think through what interaction with data will be in Canvas or Scene. And I hope we will have opportunity to talk about that more. I don't know. We don't need a war between 2D and 3D interaction. But what do you all think? There will be a time where viewers will either have to choose or handle both interaction in 2D and 3D. And hopefully we'll have a more inclusive approach. What do you think?
I'll start a little bit, Ronald. Oh, there we go. I absolutely agree 100%. I do think that is the goal, but I think the point made about resources and how we get there and creating these objects, that thread cannot be lost. And I think that that's really important when we are thinking about IIIF and implementation is not just these technical so architectures and solutions, but also just the creation of the digital surrogate. And I think that that's where we really want to focus some of our work in the communication with how do you digitize a 2D object, document that in the manifest, and then get it up there. And so that's just one of the threads I think is really important. But we absolutely want to keep working with you. And so I hope you can make it to one of our meetings. You haven't made it yet, right?
No, and vice versa. We
Yeah.
need to cross over the aisle, as it were. Um, Let me say one thing controversial and one thing non-controversial. Controversial, most of our objects are 3D, not 2D. Flapping cards included, books especially, and scrolls. We just digitized in 2D. That's the controversial one. The less controversial is a challenge. We have to be prepared for a world of multiple viewers because pretty much none will do it all at this point. And we may anticipate in the future. But if we have mixed material, we're going to have multiple viewers one way or the other, it seems. But see what you all think.
I would support Teresa, especially the point that she made in the presentation with the idea that there's a difference between kind of exploring something in 3D or playing around with its 2D-ness and having a prescribed interaction. And I think being able to define what those interactions are is a place where probably there is a much more closer tie to what's going on in 3D right now. But it's a place where 2D is intentionally abstracting to say, this is how you're supposed to be working with it. So the goal of some of the demos that we made that are linked up there as well is to say, with IIIF, with annotations, the way that they are now, is there a way in which we can describe that interaction and present it to somebody that simulates what would happen in reality without trying to replicate it directly?
Well, if I may, I think one of the things that will challenge us is to look at how we handle interactions itself, because that constrained or unconstrained will be an interesting challenge for viewing environments. Constrained in 2D or 3D, unconstrained, etc. And that's something that doesn't seem to have been explored as much in 2D, and it's something we have to grasp in 3D and are working towards. So look forward to the collaboration.
Other questions?
I'll jump back in if that's okay.
Sure.
The BBC has an idea that other views are available, so to jump in others. On the folksonomies, thanks to that, it'd be interesting to think out loud and for the future where to store all that. There is a parallel challenge in what, particularly on the continent, is called paradata, and a group calling itself the Memory Twin Alliance, memory twins using paradata to complement digital twins. Something to come and something for future IIIF discussion. But I don't know if Jessie wants to jump in.
Yeah, it looks like Jessie had to drop off unexpectedly.
Well, then, sorry that she missed it, but we can come up with it as our own folksonomy, the rest of us, and then tell her later. I'm kidding. Anyway, thanks.
Anything else? I don't like to rush people in case they're typing, because there is quite a lot going on in the chat, though not questions specifically. Ronald, you could just talk. It's fine.
Thanks. I'll try one more if that's all right. I mean, thanks for all the talks. But Dee, in Creative Commons, it's helpful to look at that statement. And I'm wondering how we can best be advocates for a clear view of. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, thank you for that question. We've been the statement launched in October, and we've had quite a bit of traffic to the website from over 100 countries. And we're actually going to be at UNESCO headquarters in about 3 weeks to have deeper conversations. But with that being said, it's almost a domino effect. We do need to have 2 member states support this, at least 1, but 2 would be better to put it on a UNESCO agenda. And that's where it gets tricky because it's like nobody wants to commit first. And then I think once we have somebody commit, then it'll be the snowball. So, of course, influential leaders that sign the statement help to show it's how important this is to the community. It's just going to even out the playing field across the globe. An institution may have the same digital image of a public domain work. One might put a copyright notice on it, the other put a public domain notice on it. It gets really confusing. And so that's just one of the simple problems. But just speaking to your individuals in the community about the work that we're doing so that when this does come up and it is starting to bubble up in conversations, that it's not a big surprise. Thank you.
Just a quick follow on, if I may. So we tend to have a big gap between share everything for those with public repositories or share nothing except with cost or prearrangement. And there's a lot of gray in between, and appreciate being unambiguous about it. But a lot of people seem to be filling in the gaps by just reference everything. Just make it clear that I'm giving credit no matter what.
And I think, go ahead. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's the lag. Does that seem right? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always important to attribute, even if it's a public domain work. The institution has taken the time and care to digitize an image, and I think that is just a good value-based way to say, I appreciate how you're being a steward of this piece. We intentionally set it as public domain simply because we needed to get our foot in the door. As you saw with the presentation, Open Education has a recommendation, Open Science has a recommendation. Those 2 international recommendations have really helped level the playing field, opening up educational works, really standardizing, what's open and what's not in science and how to label, attribute, and do all those things. So it's time for culture. The field is ready. And again, we started with public domain just to kind of stay out of that fuzzy gray area between copyright and such, but it's mainly a foot in the door.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give maybe a few more seconds for any other questions from folks, but I don't want Ronald to feel like we've held him hostage to to fill in all of our Q&A time. Okay. Oh. Okay. It looks like Tom has a question, Dee, just about whether the slides are available.
Yeah, let me just pop them over for you.
Excellent. Okay, if there are no other questions, okay, then I will let everyone go, and I will invite you to come back tomorrow for our last set of lightning talks. Those are happening at 1 p.m. Eastern. Same place, different time. And for any people who are staying and joining us later for the Glycerine workshop, that will be happening in just under an hour. Ian and I will see you there. If not, I hope we'll see many of you tomorrow. Thanks to all of our presenters today.